The world for Walter Hayes was a vast, intricate puzzle, and he was missing the instruction manual. From the moment he could remember, growing up in the bustling industrial heart of Pittsburgh, letters had been alien symbols, squiggles on a page that refused to coalesce into meaning. They mocked him from billboards, whispered from textbooks, and stared blankly from the newspapers his father read with such ease. The shame, a small, cold pebble, had settled in his gut early, growing heavier with each passing year. He was a bright boy, quick with numbers, sharper than most when it came to understanding how things worked, how machines hummed and gears meshed. He could fix anything with his hands, his mind a labyrinth of practical solutions. But the words remained an impenetrable fortress. In school, he'd learned to hide. He'd feigned sickness on reading days, mimicked the sounds of his classmates during group reading, and developed an uncanny ability to charm teachers into giving him oral assignments. His mother, a hard-working woman who cleaned offices downtown, had worried, but his father, a steel worker, had shrugged. Boys got good hands. That's what matters. And so the secret, a silent, suffocating companion, began its decades-long residency within Walter. As he grew into a man, his coping mechanisms became an art form, a complex choreography of deception. Every day was a performance, every interaction a potential trap. He memorized bus routes by landmarks, not street names. He navigated the city by the shape of buildings, the color of storefronts, the familiar scent of the bakeries and barber shops. A new sign, a detour, a sudden change in routine. These were minor heart attacks, moments of pure, unadulterated panic. At work in the sprawling, noisy warehouses of Pittsburgh, his illiteracy was a constant, low-grade hum of anxiety. He started as a loader, then a forklift operator, his spatial intelligence and innate understanding of logistics making him invaluable. He rose through the ranks, eventually becoming a foreman, a position of respect and responsibility. How did he do it? He became a master of observation, a silent, meticulous detective. He memorized product codes by their shape and color, not their alphanumeric sequences. He'd watch his colleagues fill out forms, mimicking their movements, scribbling meaningless lines that looked like signatures. When a new shipment came in, he'd pretend to forget his reading glasses, holding the clipboard out to a younger worker. "Hey, son, my eyes ain't what they used to be. Can you just read off this manifest for me? Quick-like." His gruff, friendly demeanor disarmed suspicion. He made himself indispensable through sheer competence in everything but reading. His private life was a different kind of tightrope walk. He married Clara, a kind, vibrant woman whose laughter filled their small home. He loved her fiercely, and the thought of her discovering his secret was a constant, agonizing fear. He'd make excuses for not reading bedtime stories to their 2 children, Michael and Simone. "Daddy's tired, baby. Mama will read to you tonight." He'd pretend to read the newspaper, holding it upside down sometimes, hoping no one noticed. Bills were a nightmare. He'd wait for Clara to open them, then feign disinterest. "Just tell me how much, honey. I trust you." He'd nod sagely at important documents, pretending to pore over them before signing with a practiced flourish. The weight of the deception was crushing, a silent, invisible burden that never truly lifted. He was Walter Hayes, strong, dependable, respected, and utterly terrified of being exposed. The shame was a shadow that followed him everywhere, whispering, fraud, fake, less than. He was 50 years old when the world as he knew it crumbled. 50 years of meticulously constructed lies. 50 years of silent battles, all undone by a single, innocuous phrase: digital inventory system. His company, a large distribution center, was modernizing. The old paper manifests, the handwritten logs, the familiar system he had so painstakingly memorized, they were all being replaced by tablets, scanners, and complex computer programs. Walter, the foreman, was expected to input data, cross-reference codes on a screen, and manage logistics through a glowing interface. He tried. God, he tried. He spent hours in the break room, staring at the new tablets, his brow furrowed, his heart pounding. The letters danced before his eyes, mocking him with their incomprehensible patterns. He'd ask questions, trying to glean information without revealing his inability to read the answers. He'd pretend to be slow with technology, a common enough complaint from older workers. But the pace of the new system was relentless, unforgiving. His usual cleverness, his quick thinking, couldn't bridge the chasm of his illiteracy. The younger managers, fresh out of college, looked at him with a mixture of pity and frustration. He saw their glances, heard their hushed conversations. He was a relic, an obstacle. The shame, which had always been a pebble, now felt like a boulder crushing his chest. One Tuesday morning, his supervisor, a man Walter had mentored for years, called him into his office. The conversation was polite, almost clinical. They spoke of restructuring, of new skill sets, of a different direction for the company. There was no accusation, no anger, just a quiet, polite dismissal. He was quietly let go, a severance package offered, a handshake given. Walter walked out of that office, out of the warehouse that had been his second home for 30 years, feeling utterly hollowed out. The sun, usually a comforting presence, felt harsh and judgmental. He got into his old pickup truck, the familiar scent of oil and metal doing nothing to soothe him. He drove aimlessly, the city lights blurring through his tear-filled eyes. 50 years old, jobless, and for the first time utterly exposed. The shame was a living thing now, clawing at his throat, suffocating him. He couldn't apply for another foreman job, not with these new systems. He couldn't fill out job applications. He couldn't even read the want ads in the newspaper. His entire life, built on a foundation of lies, had collapsed. He was worthless, a failure. The years of carrying the secret had finally broken him. He spent weeks in a fog of despair, sitting in his armchair, staring at the television without truly seeing it, the weight of his secret heavier than ever before. Clara, worried, tried to talk to him, but he pushed her away, his shame too profound to share. The turning point came slowly, a fragile spark in the vast darkness of his despair. It wasn't a sudden epiphany, but a gentle, persistent nudge from the purest source of love he knew, his granddaughter, 8-year-old Lily. Lily was a whirlwind of bright energy and boundless curiosity. She adored her grandpa Walter, his big calloused hands, his booming laugh, the way he could fix anything. She loved to sit on his lap, her head nestled against his chest, her small fingers tracing the lines on his face. One sweltering summer evening, Lily came bounding into the living room, a brightly colored picture book clutched in her hands. Clara was out at a church meeting. Michael and Simone were grown and lived out of state. It was just Walter and Lily. "Grandpa, Grandpa," she exclaimed, her eyes shining. "Will you read me a story? Please, it's my favorite one." She climbed onto his lap, pushing the book into his hands. Walter's heart seized. He felt the familiar cold dread, the shame rising like bile. He looked at the vibrant illustrations, the large clear text, and it was all just squiggles. He couldn't read to his granddaughter. The thought was a searing pain, sharper than any humiliation he had ever felt. "Oh, baby girl," he mumbled, his voice rough. "Grandpa's eyes are a little tired tonight. How about we just look at the pictures?" Lily's bright face fell. Her lower lip trembled. "But Grandpa, you never read to me." "Mommy always reads. And Grandma, why won't you?" Her voice was small, filled with a child's innocent hurt. Her words so simple, so unadorned, pierced through decades of carefully constructed defenses. He looked at her trusting eyes, at the book in his hands, and a profound realization hit him. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about Lily, about breaking the cycle, about being the grandfather she deserved, the one who could share stories, who could open worlds for her. The shame he felt was not just for himself, but for the legacy of illiteracy he was inadvertently passing down, the barrier it created between him and the people he loved most. In that moment, a quiet, fierce determination ignited within him. He would learn. He had to learn. For Lily, for himself, for the man he still believed he could be. The journey was slow, painful, and often humiliating. He started with Lily's books, simple picture books with large print. He'd hide in the garage late at night, the only light coming from a bare bulb, tracing the letters with his calloused finger, sounding them out in a whisper. He felt foolish, A 50-year-old man struggling with words a first grader mastered. Frustration was a constant companion, a hot wave that threatened to drown him in despair. He'd throw the book across the garage, his chest heaving, tears of anger and shame blurring his vision. He discovered adult literacy programs online, discreetly watching videos on his old laptop, the screen a dizzying array of letters and sounds. He found forums where other adults shared their struggles, their small victories. He wasn't alone. That realization, a fragile lifeline, kept him going. He'd practice for hours, repeating phonic sounds, trying to distinguish B from D from Q. His mind, so quick with mechanics, rebelled against the abstract nature of language. Clara, noticing his late-night garage sessions, would sometimes bring him a cup of tea. He'd quickly hide his books, mumbling about tinkering with the old engine. She'd smile, a knowing, gentle smile that made him wonder, for a terrifying second, if she knew. But she never pushed. She just left the tea in a silent, loving presence. His turning point came when he managed to read a full sentence, without stumbling, without guessing. The cat sat on the mat. It was a simple sentence, but for Walter, it was a mountain scaled, a universe unlocked. He felt a surge of pure, unadulterated joy, a lightness he hadn't experienced in decades. He started reading everything he could get his hands on: street signs, cereal boxes, junk mail. The world, once a collection of vague shapes and memorized patterns, began to reveal its hidden meanings. He'd read to Lily, haltingly at first, then with growing confidence. Her eyes would widen, her smile a beacon of encouragement. "You're so good, Grandpa," she'd exclaim, and his heart would swell with a pride that finally felt earned. 10 years later, at the age of 60, Walter Hayes was a different man. The shame, once a suffocating blanket, had lifted, replaced by a quiet confidence, a profound sense of accomplishment. He had not only learned to read, but he had found his voice, and he had a story to tell. He decided to write a memoir. The idea was daunting, overwhelming. How could a man who couldn't read write a book? He started by dictating his story into a voice recorder, his words flowing freely, raw and unfiltered. Then, with painstaking effort, he typed them out, one letter at a time, correcting his spelling with the help of online tools and a newfound, fierce determination. He wrote about his childhood, the constant fear, the elaborate lies, the exhaustion of maintaining the deception. He wrote about losing his job, the crushing despair, the moment Lily asked him to read. He wrote about the slow, painful process of learning, the triumphs and the setbacks. He wrote about the shame, the decades of carrying that secret, and the immense joy of finally being seen and heard. He called it The Man Who Couldn't Read. It was published by a small independent press, a quiet release that he expected to reach a few local readers, perhaps inspire a handful of people. But the story, heartfelt and undeniably human, resonated. It was picked up by a local newspaper, then a national online magazine. Word spread like wildfire. Readers were captivated by his honesty, his vulnerability, his incredible journey. The memoir became a surprise bestseller. Walter Hayes, the former warehouse foreman who had spent 50 years hiding in plain sight, was suddenly a national figure. He was invited to speak on national TV, his calm, dignified presence and his powerful story captivating millions. He spoke with a quiet authority, his voice rich with the wisdom of experience, his eyes holding the depth of a life truly lived. He was invited to speak at schools, sharing his journey with wide-eyed children, urging them to embrace learning, to never feel ashamed. He spoke at prisons, his words a beacon of hope for those who felt trapped by their past. He became a tireless advocate for adult literacy programs, his own life a living testament to the fact that it is never too late to learn, to change, to rewrite your story. The joy of finally being seen, truly seen, was overwhelming. The decades of shame, the fear of exposure had vanished, replaced by a profound sense of freedom. He could read the newspaper now, savoring each word. He could read menus in restaurants without having to pretend he'd forgotten his glasses. He could read the labels on his wife's favorite spices, surprising her with a new recipe. He could read the letters from his children, and most importantly, He could read every single word of Lily's bedtime stories, his voice steady, his heart full. Walter Hayes, at 60, was not just a man who had learned to read. He was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the human spirit's capacity for growth and transformation. His life, once defined by a hidden struggle, was now a powerful message of hope, an unwavering proof that it's never too late to break free from the chains of shame, to embrace vulnerability, and to finally, truly, read your own story aloud to the world. He was living proof that the most profound triumphs are often found on the other side of our deepest fears.